Hello friends, today we are going to be learning about conjunctions and how they affect German sentence structure. So first, what is a conjunction? Just like in English, a conjunction is a word that allows us to make sentences longer and more complicated, to share more information, and to also show the relationship between two clauses. So there are two types of conjunctions that we're going to talk about today. Just like in English, we have coordinating and subordinating conjunctions. Now, coordinating conjunctions do not change the sentence structure, but subordinating conjunctions do change. And so that's going to be a very important distinction to remember later on. So first, let's look at the coordinating conjunctions, since those are a little bit simpler. These link clauses of equal importance, and in German we have 5 commonly used coordinating conjunctions. There are a couple others, but we're not going to focus on those today because they are not as commonly used. So we have und, aber, denn, oder, and sondern. So und is and, aber means but, denn means because, oder means or, and sondern means but instead or but rather. So let's look at some examples here. We have das Kleid ist sehr schön, aber es ist teuer. So remember, just as in normal sentence structure, we have subject and verb together, and the verb is in that second position. So das Kleid is our subject, ist is the verb, and they are together, and that verb is in that second position. Same in the second clause, aber es ist teuer. Es is our subject, and ist is our verb, and they are in the correct positions. Coordinating conjunctions do not change the word order. So which conjunction is used here? We have aber. Think of coordinating conjunctions as being in that 0 position. They do not affect the sentence structure because they're outside of that first, second, third position. Let's look at a couple other examples here. We have hat nicht nur ein Hund, sondern hat auch 2 Katzen. So which conjunction is used here? We have sondern. Helge macht das Brot und ich mache die Marmelade. Which conjunction do we have here? We have und, and. Sie trägt eine Mütze, denn es schneit. So she's wearing a hat because it is snowing. Which conjunction is used here? Again, we have denn. Dieter muss studieren oder wird nicht gute Note bekommen. Which conjunction here? Oder. So now that we have seen a little bit of what coordinating conjunctions look like, let's look at subordinating conjunctions. So these change the position of the verb. The verb moves to the end of the sentence when a subordinating conjunction is present. It moves to the end of that clause specifically. So here we have a lot more options, and again, these are not even all of the subordinating conjunctions, but these are the ones that are going to be the most important for our class. So let's go across these rows here. We have bevor, nachdem, ehe, seit und seitdem, während, als, wenn, wann, bis, obwohl, als ob, als wenn und als, sobald, solange, da, weil, das, so dass, damit, ob, und so oft. And all those have their translations there. If you want to pause and practice some of that pronunciation, that would be a really good idea. So breaking down a couple of those that have multiple meanings or that translate to the same word in English so that we don't get them confused. In German, there are 3 different ways to say when. So wenn is used for a repeated event, like whenever I go to the store, I always drive. So instead of saying when I go to the store, you would say wenn I go to the store. Als is used for stuff that was completed, does not repeat in the past. So that's often like when I was younger, or when I lived in Berlin, I always ate chocolate croissants every morning. things like that. And then wann is used only for questions, like wann gehst du nach Berlin? When are you going to Berlin? If can be translated to ob or wenn. So ob is used when you can use whether in English. And then wenn is any other case that you would use if. Let's look at some examples of these. These are going to be broken down a little bit more intensively than the coordinating conjunctions because the sentence structure changes a lot more. So the sentence says, Ich werde gute Note bekommen, solange ich meine Hausaufgabe mache. So which conjunction is used here? We have solange. Since this is a subordinating conjunction, how does the sentence structure change? So in the clause with the conjunction, that verb is going to move to the end of the sentence. So which clause has that subordinating conjunction? It's that clause 2, that second clause. So that first clause is going to be exactly the same as a normal German sentence structure. We have the subject and verb together, ich werde, and that verb is in that second position of the sentence. However, in the second clause, the clause that has that conjunction, we have ich, our subject, in second position. Solange is in the first position, which means that the rest of the sentence, meine Hausaufgabe, is stuck in the middle between the subject and the verb. And that verb is all the way at the end. And to be clear, the verb that moves to the end is the conjugated verb. So in cases where we have a modal verb or a couple other helping verbs in the sentence, the one that is conjugated is going to be the one at the very end. Okay, let's look at another example. So, bevor ich die Geschirr wasche, räume ich den Tisch ab. So which conjunction is used in this case? Here we have before. Which clause is the conjunction in this time? Clause 1. So let's see how this changes the sentence structure when we have that clause or that conjunction in that first clause. So we know the verb will move to the end of the clause that has the conjunction. So wasche is at the end of that clause. And before is in that first position of the clause, which means that ich takes the second position and the rest of the sentence is squished in between the subject and the verb at the very end. So bevor ich die Geschirr wasche. In the second clause, the verb is in the first position, with the subject and verb still together. Think of the whole first sentence as first position, so that verb is in the second position of the whole sentence as a whole. And then the rest of the sentence after that subject. So räume ich den Tisch ab. Remember, whenever that conjunction is in the first clause, it will go verb, comma, verb in the middle of the sentence. Let's look at another one here. Als Heidi junge war, wohnte sie in Deutschland. So which conjugation do we have here? We have als. Where's the conjunction? It's in that clause 1 again. So where does the verb go for clause 1? At the end, because that's the clause that has the conjunction. Where does the verb go for clause 2? At the beginning, because we have that verb, comma, verb. So what pattern do we need to remember for this? It's verb, comma, verb. Verb, comma, verb whenever we have the conjunction in the first clause. So, ich will Deutschland besuchen, bevor ich sterbe. Which conjunction is here? We have before again, but this time it is in clause 2. So where does the verb go for clause 2? Since that's where the conjunction is, the verb goes at the end. Where does the verb go for clause 1? It's in that second position, just like a normal sentence. So it's in that normal position, subject and verb together, verb in second position. So let's do some translating examples. So I want to say, Charlotte wants to play games, but her mother wants her to do homework. So first we need to identify which conjunction we want to use. We want to use but. So what's the German word for that? Aber. Is it coordinating or subordinating? It is a coordinating conjunction. So what does that mean for sentence structure? That means that the sentence structure does not change. So we can just write the two clauses as if they were normal German sentences. So we have Charlotte will Spiele spielen and ihre Mutter will sie ihre Hausaufgabe machen. And then we just combine the two using the conjunction aber to make Charlotte will Spiele spielen, aber ihre Mutter will sie ihre Hausaufgabe machen. Let's look at another one here. I want to say I work often so that I can earn a lot of money. So we need to identify the conjunction. We have so that. What is the German word for that? So dass. And is it coordinating or subordinating? This one is actually subordinating. So what does that mean for sentence structure? That means that the sentence structure does change. So this process is going to be a little bit more complicated than the coordinating conjunction was. We are going to identify which clause the conjunction is in this time. Is it in clause 1 or clause 2? It is in clause 2. So we need to look at just clause 2 to start with. So we're going to identify the subject of that clause, ich. We're going to identify the verb, kann, and we are going to write just that clause. So in first position, we have the conjunction, so dass. Second, we have the subject, ich, then the rest of the sentence, everything else that we didn't point out before, viele Geld bekommen, and then last at the very end, the conjugated verb, kann. So dass ich viele Geld bekommen kann. Now that we have the clause with the conjunction written, we can write the other clause. So we're going to identify that subject, ich, identify the verb, arbeite, and then write this clause the same as a normal German sentence, subject and verb together, verb in second position. Ich arbeite oft. So oft is that rest of the sentence. And then we are going to combine the two. So ich arbeite oft, so dass ich viel Geld bekommen kann. Okay, let's look at, I think this is our last example. Identify the conjunction. We have because. What's the German word for because? We have denn and weil. Achtung, which means attention. There are two different ways to say because. One is subordinating and one is coordinating. How do we know which one to use in this situation? We are going to use weil because the conjunction is in the first clause. We must use the subordinating conjunction in this case, which is weil. If the sentence was worded, she is putting on a sweater because she is cold, we could use denn or weil. We would just need to make sure that we put the verb in the correct part of the sentence, depending on which one we choose. But since it's in the first, we have to use weil. So is it coordinating or subordinating? Just like I said, it is subordinating. What does that mean for sentence structure? The sentence structure changes, so we need to take this very carefully to make sure we put the verb in the right spot. So which clause is that conjunction in? Clause 1. What's the subject of that clause? Sie. Identify the verb of that clause. Ist. Now we need to write that clause. Remember, this is the first clause of our full sentence when we're done. So we're going to have that conjunction in the first position, weil, subject in second, sie, everything else of the sentence, kalt, and the verb last, ist. Okay, so now that we have the clause with the conjunction written, we can write that second clause. So we need to identify the subject of that clause, sie, identify the verb, sieht, and write the clause. So remember, verb, comma, verb, because we have the conjunction in the first sentence. So we have the verb in the first spot, sieht, subject in the second, sie, and everything else of the sentence, sich ein Pulli an. Now we just need to combine those two clauses. Weil sie kalt ist, zieht sie sich eine Pulli an. So that is all for today's lecture. Please bring to class tomorrow one sentence using a coordinating conjunction and one sentence using a subordinating conjunction. We're going to use these to practice in class tomorrow, so it's totally okay if you're unsure. We just need to have some sample sentences ready to go.